Today's social media segment is brought to you by Rouse's Markets. Feels like home.
Hey everybody, welcome into Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We're going to check in with the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, and for that we go to First Lieutenant Blake Tabor. Thanks so much for being with us. This is a case, and it's something that we're talking about on the overall scope of things. It's a case that you guys made, but it's something we all need to kind of look out for in our daily lives.
Absolutely. So, this is a case that kind of culminated around March 20th that led to the arrest of a Cody Douglas Dupre. He's a 28-year-old male from Houma. You see him photographed here. Ultimately, this investigation sort of came to light whenever information was brought to our SVU detectives of Mr. Dupre communicating with what he believed to be a 15-year-old female. And of course, those conversations were of a sexual nature. So ultimately, that sort of progressed. And again, we'll kind of get into some particulars of how these investigations sort of culminate. But this led to SVU detectives getting involved and prompting some communications with Mr. Dupre, where again, he continued to believe that he was communicating with this 15-year-old girl. And again, that led to some inappropriate sexting, some inappropriate pictures, and a multitude of evidence that detectives were able to collect in connection with this case. So ultimately, Mr. Dupre was arrested on charges of indecent behavior with a juvenile and computer-aided solicitation of a minor. He was arrested and transported to the Terrebonne Parish Criminal Justice Complex, where at the time of this case, he was still incarcerated on a $75,000 bond.
Yeah. So as we look at this case, and it's a beer case, I've seen recently in Livingston Parish, they had one of those predators thing, and within an hour they had guys driving from New Orleans that were on these websites that they were looking for solicitation of minor.
Absolutely. And so look, all of these efforts and how our agency really kind of got started was this was spearheaded by the Louisiana Attorney General's office, and that's the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, or the ICAC Task Force. That particular department does an amazing job with developing resources and having people in place not only to work these investigations at a state level, but also to come down to independent jurisdictions like here and train our detectives in these very complex cases. So it's a matter of fact, that's exactly what happened over the last few years. Our detectives were trained up by those particular agents with the Louisiana Attorney General's office. And then we began sort of working into our own investigations, and that's what's there. The ICAC task force really serves as sort of a end-all be-all for knowledge and for how to deal with these kind of complex cases. So, agencies across this state can now have a resource where they can reach out to make sure that we're doing things the right way.
Right. SVU's Special Unit, Special Victims Unit.
That is correct, and that is our Sheriff's Department unit.
Right. So you guys are trained in a number of different things, because we've seen cases like this. Obviously, somebody may think, is this entrapment? Obviously,
Correct.
Some people may feel that way. And other times where it's stuff on people's computers, where they're transmitting photographs of underage children.
Absolutely.
That's all kind of on the net, and it's all kind of it all falls into this SVU.
Absolutely. And so look, we can understand how someone would want to talk about entrapment with this. And, there's a lot of different details that go into these cases. And of course, that is one that we are, adamant about not implying in any investigation. But, it's about these suspects reaching out to a person thinking that they're looking for a certain someone. And I don't mean a particular person, but a particular type of person, whether that be an underage female, and in some cases, an underage male.
Yeah, and then there's other levels too, because everybody's now got a camera on their phone.
Absolutely.
Everybody's kids now have phones. And so to be able to transmit those kind of images back and forth, that's something too that I've seen. You see kids get involved with that, and they get themselves, and if they don't know any better, they get upset. They can cause self-harm, those kind of things.
Absolutely.
That's also something y'all look at, right?
Absolutely. And look, a lot of these cases really walk that fine line of child pornography. This particular case did not involve or succumb to that, but we see that in a large part of these investigations. And the good part about this, what I like about this particular investigation was the fact that we had a different division within our office that sort of spearheaded the communication of this information to our SVU detectives, and that was our criminal patrol division, which they do an amazing job. But again, another facet of what is possible with that criminal patrol division. They can now dedicate some of their time to these types of cases as well. And to be honest with you, that unit becomes a really fully functional unit for all types of law enforcement.
Yeah. So how can you protect your children more, to make sure they're not a victim or unknowingly start acting, start transmitting things that they shouldn't be doing?
And look, this comes down to parents have to be they have to not be afraid to ask the difficult questions. Look, we're all going to have things that happen in our child's life, and that can certainly be embarrassing to a parent, and we understand that. But you have got to ask the right questions, and don't be afraid to search their cell phone devices. I really think that there are a lot of kids out there that if they know that their parents are a resource to be able to talk about this, let's be honest, pretty difficult topic,
Sure.
right? Then I think that we're way ahead of the curve there with helping our juveniles get over some type.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, the internet has kind of replaced the birds and the bees talk for a lot of people, right?
Absolutely.
And that's where they go searching for a lot of that.
Absolutely. And we see it here. But again, we have to open the lines of communication within our homes and talk to our children about these things and be a resource for them to be able to bounce their behavior off of.
Right, to make sure they're not a victim and to make sure they're also not making
Absolutely.
someone else a victim.
And answer those questions for them, because as confusing it is to us as parents, it's even more confusing to them.
Absolutely. Well, First Lieutenant Blake Tabor, appreciate the update.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be right back with more Bayou Time right after this.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.